Good evening and welcome to a NewsNation special report. I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo tonight. We are live on the ground in Kerrville, Texas, where since the early hours of July 4th, we've been following the breaking news of the deadly floods that have already taken the lives of more than 100 people, and tragically 28 are children, many of whom were campers at an all-girls Christian summer camp known as Camp Mystic. There were counselors also among the dead that we've learned about. Dozens are still unaccounted for, including 10 campers and one counselor from the camp. They're looking for them still tonight. Right now, a massive search and rescue mission. It is still underway. Since Friday, nearly 20 different state and local agencies saved about 850 people in high water, very dangerous rescue missions. So how did the storm cause such devastation? In many years, the storms dropped over 20 inches of rain, equivalent to nearly 2 trillion gallons of water over the course of just a few hours. For context, that is the equivalent to 4 months of rain falling on the region in just 4 hours, or 15 days of water flowing over Niagara Falls. Think about that for a minute. 15 days of water flowing over Niagara Falls here in just several hours. That water fed into the rivers, causing them to rise over 25 feet in just 45 minutes. This region of Texas, it is the deadliest flooding zone in the entire country. It is so prone to flash floods here. They know about them. They happen here, that it has this name. It's called Flash Flood Alley. But were the residents given proper warning before these deadly floods hit? Many say that they were not. Nearly 5 million Texans still remain under a flash flood watch, including the hardest hit areas of the state. I want to bring in now NewsNation correspondent Xavier Walton. He is right outside of Camp Mystic tonight. He was there today when the heartbreaking cleanup began. Man, I see it behind you, Xavier. I can see the cabins. I see all the girls' stuff right out there on the lawn.
Yeah, Brian, really two situations, two scenes playing out all day long. It's really split by the Guadalupe River here. Outside of the camp, what you have is you have helicopters overhead. You have people searching by horseback. And then when you go across the river, right, it's much more somber. I'm going to step out of the way, and this is what you were talking about. And this is what we watched unfold all day long. This morning, that field across the way where you see the Camp Mystic, that field was empty. It has since been filled. You see it there. You have trunks, which is a Texas tradition when you're going to summer camp, to decorate your trunk. Those trunks were inside that cabin when we got here this morning. And in fact, we were watching as people were taking them out. We did see young children, some young girls there as well. I can only imagine what they're feeling right now as you think about, you know, some of their friends may have died in this tragedy. We actually watched one moment where a woman embraced, just stopped in her tracks and just gave another woman a hug because she just looked like she was overwhelmed with emotion. Piece by piece, you see blankets, you see pillows, you see mementos that are left behind, reminding people of tragically what happened here just a few days ago. You think about this too, search and rescue still underway. And we have been speaking to some of these search and rescue teams who have been going at it for 4 days now. Here's what one of them had to say.
Sometimes it just comes up. It just starts to get to you a little.
I mean, these are kids, innocent children. I'm sure you've seen the pictures and this, you know.
We found them. We found them. Some of them. This young boy right here this morning. That's why I'm here right now. You pull them out and you look at it and you can't help but think, I mean, I have kids, you know, can't help think. You know, and if you're a parent, you know what those parents are going to feel.
Brian, I know you've been talking to search and rescue teams too, and these are big, tough guys. Some of them, just like the man you heard from, Don there, and they are mush. They are just so emotional because of what they're seeing out there. You know, I asked them, I said, how long are you guys going to keep doing this? How long can you keep going? Their response to me is always the same. We're going to keep going as long as we need to until all of these families get the closure that they deserve, Brian.
I mean, like you said, Xavier, these are tough guys, but when children are involved, it's another level. It's another level for everyone. And I'm just looking again at the pile of stuff behind you in the trunks, and there's so much pink there. I mean, you just remember that this was a girls' camp, and this was 8 and 9-year-old little girls. They were so excited. They bring their trunks there, now being dragged out. And I don't think people realize, looking at these pictures, Xavier, because it's dry now, but the water actually went up to the roof line and even higher in some of these areas, right? So this video we're looking at, I mean, this was all totally underwater.
That's exactly right, Brian. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Dave, the photographer behind the camera, I'm going to show you exactly how high the water was here. Over to my right, we believe that is perhaps a bed sheet hanging. That's got to be like 40 feet in the air. And think about this too. So this is all filled with water, and think about how much force it had to take to knock all of these trees down. And then you think about these little girls and you see these pictures of their faces. It is just heartbreaking. It is devastating. That's why there are two scenes playing out. That search and rescue, there's a sense of urgency up here. Down there, though, it is extremely somber. I mean, just looking at it, I've been here all day, and just looking at the different items through the lens, you can't help but get a little choked up, because you think about these little girls and you think about their families, you think about their parents, and some of them, quite frankly, still don't even have the closure that they're looking for.
You mentioned the bed sheet, Xavier. So many of the people that we've spoken to were clinging to their mattresses. I mean, it's something that we've heard over and over again. I guess it makes sense if you were woken up in the middle of the night and the water was rising and you're in bed, the first thing you're going to do is cling to your mattress. You have to wonder. You don't even want to think about the last moments of those little girls' lives. I mean, what they must have been going through. Behind you, I see there's water behind you. The river's in the area. Are they still searching that area for these girls? Do they think they could still actually be close by, or could they be far away at this point?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question. I'll step out of the way again, because earlier today when we got here, there was actually a boat in the water searching, poking around. There was a diver in the water. Obviously, it's a lot lower now. And then crews were out here as well, just kind of walking up and down, you know, this area that you're looking at on your screen. At one point, a Black Hawk helicopter, that area we just showed you with that white sheet or a piece of it, it was hovering over that area too. We were trying to figure out what is going on. That says to me that they are looking everywhere and they're not leaving anything unturned. And quite frankly, as you look around here, I'm just now noticing off in the distance, Brian, there's a car just completely mangled. We've been here all day. I hadn't even seen that. Up and down the Guadalupe River from where we are, going down into town Hunt. I mean, it's just a trail of destruction. You mentioned beds. We've seen beds literally hanging 30 to 40 feet high at the top of trees. Just unbelievable what we're seeing.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible, Xavier, especially that scene behind you at the camp. All right, we appreciate your reporting. The big question right now, will search and rescue teams be able to find any of the dozens still missing alive? I want to bring in someone who is helping lead those efforts right now. We've got Commanding Officer of Coast Guard Air Station Corpus Christi, Charlie Wilson. Thank you, sir, first of all. I mean, we've seen all the work that you guys are doing. We've been out here for days. The chopper just went overhead when you got here. The men and women of the Coast Guard are heroes, hundreds of rescues. But it's just so sad. I mean, I'm just wondering at this point, and I'm thinking of these girls' families, is it still a rescue operation? Is that still what it's classified as?
It is still, for the Coast Guard, a search and rescue operation. We're one of just many federal partners here on scene, assisting the state of Texas. We're working directly for the state of Texas EOC. They're directing our efforts. The Coast Guard's in the business of search and rescue, and we will exhaust all resources and the best of technology that we have to make sure that that continues for as long as the state needs us.
You guys, do these rescues all over the country. In terms of how far someone could be, I mean, the current was so strong the last couple of days. How big of an area are we looking at in terms of a search at this point?
Sure, that's really hard to say. A little bit easier in maritime areas out in the open ocean. Here, such localized, so many different dynamics with water flow and where that river went and where the debris actually went based on seconds and minutes and where you were at. It's a difficult search. I can tell you we've got the best of technology. The federal government has offered every resource from aircraft to unmanned aerial vehicles, ISR technology to get after this search and throw everything we have at it. It is still very much a search.
Take us into what it was like this weekend, because I mean, over 850 rescues. We heard about the one Coast Guardsman who I think was 160 plus people he himself rescued. What was that like?
It was. So from our perspective at Air Station Corpus Christi, we're just one piece of that entire federal response. We had a helicopter on a 24-hour duty rotation. They got called as soon as the floodwater started rising right behind us to respond to a flood event in Kerrville, Texas. We launched that air crew up here. They 3 times tried to get through the weather. The weather was so bad, they had to abort that attempt 3 times to get here. On the 4th attempt, they were able to make it in. They were immediately diverted over to Camp Mystic. At that point, we dropped our rescue swimmer off, AST-3 Scott Ruskin, and he remained on scene there for 3.5 hours as a triage specialist, loading over 165 individuals into a variety of state, federal, local helicopters to get them out of Camp Mystic as those floodwaters swelled.
Yeah, he did an incredible job. Again, my mind just keeps going back to the parents, though, with 10 girls still missing right now and what it must be like for them every minute of the day. How long do you think this could go on for? I mean, you guys have so much experience doing this. Do you think this will be resolved soon?
As a parent, the stories, the individual stories that you hear, hard to hear. And unfortunately, for a lot of the rescuers here, that's what we live every day. That's what we ask our people to go out and do is try to change somebody's life, try to save somebody's life. And for us, that means this search will go on as long as the state of Texas needs us. We can maintain a near continuous rotation. Our helicopters are providing the only federal night hoist capability, and we're doing that tonight. And I think if the totality of this operation was not a search, we would not be standing that duty. We are a search and rescue platform, and we will provide those skills and that unique set of mission that we have 24/7, 365 until the state says they don't need the federal government.
It just seems to hit harder. I mean, even just talking to first responders out here today, it seems to hit harder because it's little girl. I mean, it's kids.
It is, and for the men and women responding from Air Station Corpus Christi, Coast Guard Air Station Houston, we've got aircraft here from Air Station Miami. This is our home. Many people vacation here. Many people are from here. And so it's not just another mission. It's not just another search and rescue operation. This is home, this is family, and this is friends. And that's what makes each of those individual stories harder to process, right?
Yeah. Well, again, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you for all the hard work
for having
your
us.
men and women are doing. We've seen it all day, and we'll just, we report on miracles sometimes, so I think
We still have hope.
Yeah.
And this is very much still a search.
Okay, thank you, sir, so much. So they've been doing incredible out here. We've seen them all day long. The Coast Guard really leading the force here. All right, coming up next, one of the most devastating stories I've heard since I've been here is the search for a missing 1-year-old baby boy and his parents. Their house is not far from where I'm standing right now. Their story's coming up next. I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo live in Kerrville, Texas, and you're watching NewsNation's special report, Tragedy in Texas. There is so much devastation here, and it really runs far and wide. You go up and down this Guadalupe River, and it's just devastation and more and more and more. There's more than 100 people dead right now, many of which are children. There are still dozens of people missing. They're going to be searching all night long. You just heard it from the Coast Guard captain. Earlier today, I interviewed friends and neighbors of the Romero family. The parents and their 1-year-old baby boy are still missing after the devastating flood. Take a look. So there was a house here, this big pad. There was a house that literally got picked up by the river and taken away. Inside, there was a family of 4, a mom, a dad, a 1-year-old little baby, and a 14-year-old. And the neighbors say the mom, the dad, and the baby are still missing right now. The 14-year-old is in the hospital.
We've been trying to get a hold of her. unsuccessfully. And I kept telling Tammy, it's not like her not to get in contact with someone.
There's so many people missing. There's so many.
So the water's gone down substantially now, but it was up to pretty much where my neck is, where I'm standing, and you can see these homes were just totally moved. And you look inside, I mean, the water just took the walls down. Everything inside is destroyed. There's mud everywhere, and this just shows you, I mean, if you were sleeping inside in the middle of the night in your bed in a house like this, you would have been swept right out. So you know some of the people who are missing?
Yeah, I've known my coach, and his wife Paula was my English teacher, and yeah, I mean, and I knew one guy, Julian, he was a good friend of mine. He passed away too, so I mean, yeah, it's pretty devastating right now for the most part. I mean, never seen it like this. It's pretty bad. I mean, as you can see, I mean, it's a lot to take in at times, so.
So right now you've got volunteers and cadaver dogs and first responders going through all of these wooded areas along the river, looking for any human remains. We're told that in some instances, they found bodies 10 miles away, 10 miles downriver, because the current has just been so strong. So now I want to introduce to you two men who truly acted heroically, one for a stranger and one for his own family. Christian Brown, his wife and two young daughters, they were staying with their family in a cabin in Hunt, Texas, which is not far from where I am. When water started rising to unprecedented levels, they miraculously survived. Also joining us now live, we've got Carl Jetter, who rescued a total stranger from a tree after she floated 20 miles down the river. Christian and Carl, thank you both for being with us. Christian, I want to start with you. So walk us through what happened. You were in your cabin with your family in Hunt, Texas. Were you sleeping when you noticed that the water was coming up?
Yeah, Brian, it was about 3:30 in the morning, and it had been storming, thundering, and lightning all night long. So we hadn't been sleeping or anything. We've been, every time there's a big lightning strike, we kind of go check on our kids, check on the water level, make sure there wasn't anything out of the ordinary, right? Because our cabin's about 30 feet above the water. So we really didn't have any concerns that the water was going to get that high. And then there was one time when we just heard kind of a sloshing, banging sound, and we realized that something was a little bit off, something was different. So I jumped up, I looked out one of the back door, and I saw water streaming in through the wooden door, and then looked out the window, and I could see water about 3 feet above the ground level. And we realized that, okay, we had to act now. So we grabbed our kids out of the bed, jumped on a bunk bed, and then pretty much as soon as we got on top of the bunk bed, the back door actually gave way, and water just flowed through the cabin and started creating all kinds of chaos.
Oh my gosh, I'm just imagining you with your kids on the bunk bed as the water is rising. How did you manage to stay calm?
It was a little bit difficult, but my wife and I tried to make sure that we were keeping our kids as calm as we could, given the circumstances. Not only was it pitch black, obviously we had lost electricity. We couldn't really see anything. I had my cell phone, thankfully, in my pocket, so we were able to turn on the flashlight and kind of check the water levels, but I didn't want to drain the battery too much, so we would turn it off when we could. And then we'd hear, more crashing, windows breaking, furniture falling over. So it was a pretty unsettling, period of time.
Did you think, Christian, that you were going to have to make the decision to leave the top of the bunk bed, or did you get that feeling that the water was sort of done rising?
No, absolutely. So like I said, we realized that there was flooding when we were about 3 feet, and when we got on top of the bunk bed, we got up to about 4 feet. So it was above the doorknobs of our doors. And I was at the point where I had to make the decision of thinking, all right, do we need to stay here and hope the water doesn't continue to rise? Or if we need to evacuate, how do we, what do we do? And so I ended up opening the front door, and I saw the water just, rushing by, and I saw a big branch kind of floating, not even floating by, flowing by. And I, at the time, made a decision that trying to jump out into that water, with my kids was not the best idea. And so we chose to stay in there and hope that the water wasn't going to get a whole lot higher. And thankfully, at that point, that was about the crest of it. So it started receding once we kind of made that decision.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'm so glad you and your kids are okay. Carl, Talk us through what you went through. I mean, you were on drier land, but you heard screaming late Friday night. And pick up the story from there.
Yeah, we had moved away from the house because the floodwaters were coming up. Our home is 26 foot off the ground, so we're elevated pretty good. But the floodwaters had completely filled the underneath, and it was across the street. So we had backed up off of that, and just watching the water to see when it was going to crest and when it might start back down. And as soon as I figured that out, then I waded in and walked up onto our deck, and there's a length, and I walked down it, and when I got to the end of it, then I heard screaming, help, help, help. And first I thought maybe I could tell it was a female, but I thought maybe they were in the river. It sounded like it was moving, and then I finally was able to hone in on it, and I spotted Devin in the tree across the way there. And at that point, then I just began to holler back at her as loud as I could. Hey, I see you. We're gonna get you help. You need to hang on, relax as best as you can. We're gonna get you out of this predicament. But I don't know how long it's gonna take to do that. But you're gonna have to hang on.
And so what happened? What happened next?
Well, at that point, then I immediately called 911, and I told them what was going on. And after about 20 minutes or so, I got no response, and so that seemed odd to me. So I went, and in the meantime, we'd gotten a little bullhorn from some neighbors, and we're just trying to comfort her and make sure that she understood we were there, and that help was going to be on the way, because you could tell that she was in a panic mode. You're up in the tree 20-something foot in the air, and so I kept reassuring her, and then when no one came, I went and got in my vehicle, and I drove over, I don't know, a few hundred yards to where I knew there would be authorities, and I alerted a DPS agent, and I said, hey, there's a girl in a tree over here. We need some help, and I need to get somebody over there. And he immediately started radioing to get assets over there, and our local fire department showed up pretty quickly after that, and they weren't equipped to go get her either, but they were there to assist, and they backed their vehicle up where they've got a really loud speaker, and we were hollering back across to her to let her know that we're here, we're going to get you. And they weren't able to get a helicopter in at that point. It was, the weather conditions were not appropriate, so they were able to get a swift water team over, one from Bernie, and then the Texas Park and Wildlife had a boat, and so they, it was just a couple of guys, and they weren't able to get all the boats in the water, but all of us and my neighbors, we grabbed a hold, pulled it down,
Yep.
Launched it into the river, and then they were able to traverse over to the tree. I'm sorry?
Well, listen, Carl, I mean, it's amazing that you stepped in that way. You're truly a hero. Christian, I'm so glad that you made the decision to bring the kids up under the top bunk. The woman, by the way, Carl, that you saved, apparently she had no broken bones, just a bunch of bruises and scratches. So thank God for that. When you look at that map, she traveled 20 miles down the river, which is unbelievable. So we really appreciate both of you, Carl and Christian, for sharing your stories with us. Thank you so much for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, still to come, did the residents here get enough warning before these floods became deadly? Was there enough warning to actually save lives? We look for save lives. We look for answers next, plus President Trump's latest remarks on the daily floods. We're back live from Texas after this.
like to do when you travel there on Friday?
Well, we're going to just make it as comfortable as possible for the state of Texas. They have a great governor. They have wonderful senators. They have wonderful representatives, and we're going to work together with them. And we have been working really very hard. This whole table has been working. That was a terrible event, terrible event.
I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo live tonight from Kerrville, Texas. You're watching NewsNation's special report, Tragedy in Texas. That, of course, was President Trump just moments ago, and he is planning to visit Texas on Friday. The question right now that everybody's asking, not just here, but really around the country, is did the residents in the area get enough warning about these deadly floods? I want to bring in AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish and also retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who was the commander of the Joint Task Force for Hurricane Katrina. I don't think General Honore is with us yet, but he'll be joining us in a second, Jeff. So I'll start with you, Jeff. Help me sort of understand what was going on behind the scenes, because we've confirmed that the National Weather Service did put out a warning, but when you talk to these campers and the people who live up and down the river, they don't seem to have known that this was going to be so serious.
This is a very, very tough story here, and you know, our compassion for people on all sides of this. We're not here to point fingers or anything like that on our end, but I do want to tell you about the time sequence of how these warnings were issued, and there was ample warning issued by the National Weather Service. They had a flash flood warning issued at 1:14 a.m., more than 3 hours before the official ramp up of the tremendous escalation of water on the Guadalupe River began to claim many lives. And 30 minutes before that, our team at AccuWeather issued a flood warning and a SkyGuard flash flood warning through our own system here as well. But again, that we realize and we recognize the timing of this was very difficult in the middle of the night. Many kids are not allowed to take phones to them at camp, and I understand that. But ultimately, there are adults who are responsible for the well-being of these children. And a flash flood watch was issued back at 1:18 on Thursday the 3rd. This was about, 15 hours before the actual flooding really ramped up. And again, 24 hours in advance, our team at AccuWeather began to talk about flash flood threats as a parallel to a flood watch. So we do live in a country where we have the best warning system in the world. There are still challenges in rural areas where cell service may not be reliable. People may not have access to cell phones at certain times. But there also is the concept of the NOAA weather radio, the good old-fashioned NOAA weather radio, which has been kind of revitalized with same technology that's very county by county and location specific, actually down to the zip code. And this area is covered well by the National Weather Service's system of getting NOAA weather radio alerts out. And there's a transmitter there not far from the camp, which covers most of the county very, very well. So this is tough. This is tough, and it's very unpopular to try to wake kids up in the middle of the night and say, hey, we got to get up and evacuate. I also recognize that flash flood warning fatigue is a thing. If you get 15 or 20 or 30 or 100 flash flood warnings over the course of several decades and you don't get this outcome, maybe people put their guard down a little bit, but we cannot do that if you have lives on the line, people living or sleeping near these bodies of water. And, you know, we call this area Flash Flood Alley for a reason. And it's not it is counterintuitive. If you were to paint a picture of the hill country, you probably wouldn't include a whole lot of water. But this area has had several very significant flash flood events in history. 10 years ago, in 2015, Wemberley, Texas, very close to this area, had a 30-foot rise of a river. And in July of 1987, many lives were also lost. So we've had three significant, life-taking major events here with flash flooding in the hill country here, specifically in this area near Kerrville and surrounding spots. So we have to take every flash flood warning seriously, and especially when a flash flood emergency is issued, we really need to escalate. Yeah. But again, we got to keep an eye out on what's going on upstream whenever this happens.
Could they have put the just real quick, Jeff? Could they have put the warning in effect earlier? I get what you're saying. It was still 3 hours. 1:14 a.m. The event didn't happen until 4:30 a.m. So there was 3 hours, but people were sleeping at 1:14. Is there any way they could have done the warning like 8, 9 o'clock before people go to bed?
There's that fine line between overwarning, which leads to more false alarms, and people tend to take less action if you have too many false alarms. And then certainly underwarning is something that we never want to do in not getting the word out. No weather radios are designed to wake people up. Again, it may not wake all the campers up, but there are decision makers who could be awakened by that. We understand that in some of these cases, there may have been overnight security guards as well. Yeah, it wasn't obvious until late at night that this was a dire event. 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in advance. It's difficult to pinpoint these slow-moving thunderstorms that drift. The flow aloft is so weak. So sometimes there is an element of uncertainty until you begin to get into that window of time. But still, 3 hours is enough. I recognize that it's a very inconvenient, very difficult time in the middle of the night, though.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that this was really a once-in-a-lifetime event. It was just so awful. I want to bring in General Honore. What do you make of the breakdown here? I mean, we've learned, General, that, you know, the National Weather Service, he just explained it, Jeff did, they put the warning out. So the feds did their job. It seems to me like, why wasn't there sirens? What was going on the local level? What are you zeroing in on?
Well, I'm confident that they got the warning and the emergency notification from the Weather Service. They did their job. In this case, I think it was a failure to execute the warning and the notification of the campers along the river. And of course, the explanation is that they don't have sirens and they don't have long-range radios, backup communications, and that which did not cause the evacuation to happen. The evacuation should have been happening on the notification that came in the evening before, because the weather authorities had said it's going to flood. The rain is coming, and out of fact, the rain came more than they predicted, but they told everybody, flood warning, flood watch, flood warning, flood watch, and they didn't get the evacuation done. That has to be fixed, and that can be fixed with redundant communications and an understanding that you don't have to send buses in. You just have to practice with the campers. They've got to walk up the hill to get out of the water. And I've been hearing folks down in Texas today say, well, it was too late to send buses in. No, they walk up the hill and get away from the water. That's all that needed to be done. So I think the biggest thing that didn't happen was the evacuation, because they got warning. And then the county and the state is going to have to look at the regulatory requirements where you're keeping children. So they have redundant communications, and they have a water watch person out like we used to do in Korea when I was in the 2nd Infantry Division. When there's rain and water going down the river, you have a watchman out all night, a guard watching the water to give early warning if the waters start to rise. So there are many techniques around technology, but technology could fix much of this with better communications and a better plan for people to walk up the hill.
Yeah, you make a good point. You, of course, commanded over the recovery after Hurricane Katrina, so you know how a look back goes with something like this. But again, and what you said, people could have literally, the kids could have just walked, an acre away and they would have been on dry land. Unfortunately, this was the middle of the night, and it seems by the time they woke up, it was just too late. Russell Honore, Jeff Cornish, we appreciate you both for coming on with us tonight. Thank you so much.
And those who...
All right, coming up next, another miracle, the story of a mom reunited with her 2 young sons hours after the deadly storms hit their camp, plus a Texas state lawmaker who is under fire for voting no on a bill that some say would have actually saved lives. We're live in Texas after this. I'm Brian Entin in for Chris Cuomo, live in Kerrville, Texas tonight. You're watching NewsNation's special report, Tragedy in Texas. It's reported 104 are dead. 28 of those people are children, and there are dozens still missing. But amongst all this devastation, there are stories of heroism and also of hope. And joining me now is Kelly Rabin and her 9-year-old son, Braden. Kelly was reunited with her 2 sons after they survived flooding at Camp La Junta, and we're so happy to see you guys tonight. I mean, I think everybody just needs some good news. This has just been so heavy. Kelly, tell me what happened with your son. Was he in the cabin when the water started rising?
Yes, so Braden and Brock, Brock is my 7-year-old son, just graduated kindergarten. We're both there at Camp La Junta. And for Brock, it was his first year. They'd only been there for one full day when that night the water started rising, and it rose quickly. Brock was at a very low-lying cabin, and so it was kind of 3 cabins all together, and the water started to rise. He went from being on his bottom bunk to then the brave counselors told him, okay, everybody on the top bunks, and then they actually hoisted them up to the rafters. And I mean, we're talking about such young boys, you know, watching the waters rise, and then the windows started to crack, the door came off, the walls eventually came down. It's just terrifying.
Oh my gosh, Braden, how scared were you during this?
I mean, I wasn't really scared for myself because I knew I was okay. But so people were in another cabin that flooded, and so they came into our cabin, and when they were walking around during the early morning, because they had to get out of their cabin, they saw that the cabin that my little brother was in was flooded. The river was basically up to it. And I was just more worried about him than myself.
Yeah, well, you're a good brother. That shows that you're a good brother. We're glad that you're okay. Kelly, I'm so glad you have your boys with you tonight. And like I said, I mean, it's you know, I think we all need a good story once in a while. It's just been so terrible out here. We appreciate you both coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we just want people to really not give up on the idea of summer camps. It's a beautiful thing, and it means so much to so many kids. And so we're hopeful that all these camps are able to rebuild and people come back to, you know, enjoy them in the future.
Yeah, understood. I mean, we all have fond memories from summer camp. All right, thank you, Kelly. After tragedies like this, the finger pointing, it always begins. And one lawmaker who's taking a lot of heat right now is Republican State Representative Wes Verdell. Just moments ago, Verdell voted no. I'm sorry, it was months ago. Verdell voted no on a bill that some say would have improved the state's emergency response plan, complete with outdoor warning sirens and new emergency alert systems in case of a disaster like what we saw. The bill, which would have cost $500 million, it was never passed. So why didn't Representative Verdell vote for the bill? We want to ask him now. He joins us live. Republican State Representative Wes Verdell, who represents Kerr County, which is the place where I'm staying right now. Really appreciate you being with us, Representative. I mean, surely, I mean, of course you would have voted for it had you known that this was going to happen. But I guess what was going on at that time? Why didn't this pass?
Yeah, you know, it was actually kind of taken out of context in the article that brought that forward. But when we look at the bill, I got to ask the question about the bill. Wasn't on my mind. Asked my team to look through it, and they said, no, it's a bad bill. It creates a council that has no transparency. It's actually exempt from transparency. And when we create government commissions or anything like that, there should be full accountability for that. And it didn't actually create have money for funding of the emergency warning systems. It was just the money for creating the commission is all it was.
So is there already talk now of some kind of warning system? Because we had the meteorologist on earlier who said, you know, this alert from the National Weather Service came more than 3 hours before the event, but for whatever reason, these campers and people up and down the river didn't know about it.
Yeah, we talk about sirens. If you think about, I have a siren 200 yards from my house, and I don't hear it if I'm in my house. If I walk outside and I can hear it, they test it once a month. That could apply to this. What we really need is more cell service in that area. There's
Is
no
the cell service bad near the camp? Okay. I'm just wondering. I mean, with the camp,
it's really bad. Yeah.
With Camp Mystic being, and so many of these camps being so close to the river, I mean, do you know, do they have protocols in place in terms of having someone, we had General Honore on saying you must, have someone watching the river, especially if you know that there's like a flash flood warning?
In the hill country, especially at the headwaters of Guadalupe, this is just not something you expect. Even if there was flash flood warnings, you don't expect a 30-foot rise, especially at the beginning of the river. And unfortunately, that's what happened this time, and people did not expect that. And people were very high up in several of the campgrounds, and the water still came up 30 feet, and unfortunately took some of that.
Yeah, and I just think the timing too, with it being the middle of the night, and the warnings coming at 1:15 in the morning, a lot of people were asleep. You know, there was no way for them to know, especially if there wasn't a siren right outside their house. I mean, you represent this county where I am, Kerr County. The people here are so nice, by the way. My heart goes out to everybody here. I mean, it's a wonderful place. It's going through something terrible. What are the biggest challenges, would you say, right now? I mean, what do you want the country to know?
I'd like the country to know we truly appreciate the amount of support and items that have come pouring in and donations to help us. It shows, you know, how great this country is and how great the people are, despite sometimes people think that we're losing this country, but we're full of really amazing people that step up to help when needed.
Do you think you have the resources you need at this point? I mean, just driving around today, I mean, we've seen it's like helicopter after helicopter. It seems like the cavalry has arrived.
You know, I'm not the emergency management expert, but just being on the ground, and we flew in the air too, looking over, I feel like there's a lot of resources right now. I'm sure it's possible that more could be used somewhere, but from what I can tell, there's a lot of resources there to help us right now.
Yeah. Well, Representative West Verdell, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right. You got it, sir. We'll be right back after this. That does it for our live coverage from Texas, where there are tragically 10 little girls still missing tonight. The search efforts will go all night long. You heard the Coast Guard say that earlier. Leland Vittert starts right now.